sufficient bulk to hold your crown on. Then they taught to put brass pins, screwed in brass pins into the tooth, and then to pack a mercury filling on top of that, an amalgam filling on top of that, to be left as bulk to hold the crown in. Now, about 10 or 15 years ago, I can't remember exactly, the American Dental Association came out with a study that showed that 75% of mercury amalgam fillings were placed brand spanking new on top of existing decay. Now, my logic here is that if you have a tooth that needs a crown and it has a mercury filling in it, and you prepared the tooth and you decided to leave the mercury filling and go ahead and put the crown over the top of it, you've got at least a 75% chance that you're going to be putting a brand spanking new crown on top of a tooth that has existing decay under the mercury filling. So you're kind of compounding your problems. In reality, it's somewhere between 80 and 85% have decay underneath them. Because the amalgam filling has been in that mouth for years, and it doesn't bond to the tooth. It leaks, it corrodes. And then they say that the way it seals is by corrosion, but it has to leak to corrode. The logic there doesn't really sit with me. Composite fillings, on the other hand, are bonded to the tooth and to the dentin. They seal somewhat better because they're using micropores in the tooth to actually put pods of restorative material down inside those pods and to hold it in place. Can a tooth break with a composite filling? Absolutely. When you put a mercury filling in a tooth, the preparation, it's called the GB black preparation of amalgam, has sharp internal line angles. In other words, where it comes down to the bottom of the box, that's a real sharp angle at the bottom. So you pack the mercury filling inside here, and the zinc that's in amalgam filling combines with saliva to produce hydrogen gas and zinc oxide. Hydrogen gas forms bubbles inside the filling, and as you eat something hot or drink something hot, gases expand. So the filling gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally it breaks a section or cracks out down here on this corner. And those cracks are weak spots in the tooth. So even if it stays on in the preparation process for a composite, you can bond it on there. The tooth's going to be stronger with a bonded composite, but it still has a possibility of breaking a cusp bone or splitting the tooth because the tooth already has the crack or split down it to begin with.
So why was amalgam fillings used early on? Why is it?
Why were they used? Mm-hmm. Because it was cheap. French came up with it, and it was a cheap filling material that once it went in the mouth, it became hard, and they saw that it would last for years. They didn't really examine the marginal breakdown like they have on composites. When you talk about apples and apples or apples and oranges, marginal breakdown is marginal breakdown, and the margins around a mercury filling break down at an accelerated rate more so than around a composite filling. It's just, it was a way of doing dentistry, cheap, fast, supply it at a cheap cost to the masses, and the whole thing right now is mercury as a device. It's not being regulated by the FDA. It's something they say, well, it's a device. It's up to the doctor whether he wants to use it or not. That's fine. You know, the lady that had the mercury fillings done that I did for her, and she developed the arthritis, her comment to me was, you cannot apologize for last year's Cadillac. Last year's Cadillac was a mercury filling, and it's improved now. Now you have mercury fillings, but you've got things that they're as good as or better. Porcelain, composites, golds, high noble golds, not inexpensive metals. inexpensive metal have nickel in them. And nickel, again, is a neurotoxin just like mercury is. So you've got to use quality material to restore your teeth with. I try to use some type of insulation base under each one of these fillings in the deepest part of the preparation. I also use ozone to sterilize the internal portions of the tooth. That way I'm trying to make sure that there's no bacteria that we're going to trap in there. It's not the decay that really causes the tooth to go bad. It's the bacteria and their byproducts in the decay that make the tooth go bad. They're toxic. So if you kill all the bacteria, even if there's a minuscule amount of decay left on the tooth, it's going to be sterile material, and you can bond over the top of it.
Nice. Can you tell us about some of the details for people that are looking to remove their fillings? Some of the things they need to look for dentists about removal, safe removal.
Well, I would say number one, if you're going to have your amalgams removed, you need to find a dentist that really believes that mercury can be toxic to you. There are a lot of dentists out there that don't do mercury fillings because they like the looks of the composite better than the mercury. But to have somebody that really is convicted to the fact that mercury can be bad for you, I think they're going to be a little more thorough than somebody that's not. Dentists are human. No matter how persevering they are to get all of the mercury filling out, there's always a possibility that there can be a little speck of mercury filling left when you have it removed. You know, I've done this. I've had it done twice that I've located mercury specks after I finished the restoration when we took their decay detecting films at the next visit. It embarrasses the heck out of me to tell them that I left some mercury filling in their mouth. But I immediately go back in and replace it and make sure that it's completely cleaned out. But I see a lot of people, there was an old thing, when the composites first came out, they said, oh man, people really like these white fillings. We can take our mercury fillings, we can cut down half the thickness of a mercury filling and put a composite over the top of it. That way it'll look white. Well, no, it doesn't look white, it looks gray. But that was the logic in the 70s that that's what they were going to do. You got to be careful with composites, though. They're the biggest boon to root canal therapy in the world, and some root canals are good and some root canals aren't good. So you got to be careful with it. So if you have any possibility, if it's a really, really deep composite, number one, you want to base it out. You want to use a product like Life. Calcium hydroxide, Dical, has 17 different chemicals in it. A lot of people have hypersensitivity in their teeth because of the Dical base. So I had to move away from Dical to a product called Life. It's a calcium hydroxide base. I put it in the deepest part of the restoration. When I put my bonding agent, my etching agents into the tooth, I'll use 2 or 3 layers of this to give me some type of thickness to protect the pulp of the tooth, and then cure in incremental stages. If you heat that pulp of that tooth up by 1 degree Fahrenheit, you kill the nerve. And light is energy. Energy produces heat, and then fillings will heat up when you have a curing light on the material.
Nice.
Did I answer your question?
Excellent.